for millennia, and we would like to acknowledge their direct descendants, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land upon which we live, work, and conduct ourselves. We acknowledge our treaty relationship responsibilities to both the land and these original peoples. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also recognize that this land is rich in pre-contact history and customs, which includes the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee, and since European contact, has and continues to become home for Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As it is in the spirit and intent of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, whereby we will collectively care for and respect the land, water, animals, and each other in the interests of peace and friendship, and for the benefit of not only ourselves, but our future descendants. All right, so as you all know, Katie and I are facilitating the Generation Green program. We are always here to support you. Those are our emails. We will try our best to respond as soon as possible. So if you haven't heard from us in 24 hours, just please be a little bit patient as we work through all the students who do have questions. But again, we're always here for you. If you ever want to schedule a one-on-one call, please just email us and let us know and we can schedule that for you. Next slide, please. Amazing. So this is our spring webinar series. As many of you know, it is mandatory to attend 2 of these sessions, either live or the recorded. Yes, on FeedLoop, we can see if people have gone in. So your attendance is always tracked no matter what. If you are watching our spring webinars with another person through their FeedLoop or through YouTube or any other format where your username is not actually associated to watching the recording or watching it live, just send Katie and I a quick email just to let us know so that we are able to track it on our end that you are meeting the mandatory requirements to get your 20 volunteer hours. So some key dates to just be aware of is right now we're on webinar for troubleshooting your project. Next week we have spring break where our youth stakeholders have several events planned for the whole week. So we will detail more about what's coming in the following series right now. And then April 23rd is when you need to submit your final Google form. And then the wrap-up event is May 12th. Next slide, please. All right, so far, this is what has happened. You've done the conference. All of you should have already submitted your project proposal. If you haven't already, please get that in ASAP, but it should already be in because the deadline passed about a week ago. Katie and I have reviewed all of your proposals and have sent you an email confirming that you're ready to go and that we've also attached our we've also attached like an Excel sheet to help you with your calculations. So now you have the remaining steps of troubleshooting, calculating, and the final submission. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just to reiterate, by submitting your final project, you will receive your 20 volunteer hours, a certificate of completion, and depending on your project itself, when it goes into the judging process, you are eligible for awards as well and some fun prizes. So this is our spring break events schedule so far. So for the Monday, we have a webinar with Climate Reality Project, just on how you can take climate action on a community-based level. And then April 13th, we have a youth who will be running a workshop on social media and how to spread awareness through that platform. On April 13th, we have a Q&A with an environmental lawyer. It's actually 2 environmental lawyers that will be coming on. So if you're really interested in that field on as like a career, I highly suggest you attend that one so you can have some one-on-one talks with them. April 14th is when we're encouraging everyone to get outdoors, obviously.
Yeah, it's okay.
Distancing. Um, and we're using the Litter Already app. So if you're not already familiar with this app, it is something that you can download on your phone, and you can take pictures of the litter that you're finding as you clean up, and it geotags with the location as well as what type of litter it is automatically. And then this allows Hen to get a better grasp of the types of litter that are accumulating in our communities based on the different regions within Halton. And we're working with the municipalities to um, help better environmental policy as well as identify litter hotspots. So for that April 14th event, you'll actually be eligible for extra volunteer hours because it is part of our pop-up cleanups program that will be launching pretty shortly. So you must adhere to the social distancing guidelines, meaning that you can only do it with your family or by yourself or within your social bubble, depending on the COVID restrictions right now. So April 14th, we have a really fun Kahoots trivia game night. So there's Scribbler as well as Kahoot, and everyone will be able to come on and just answer a bunch of questions. Our youth stakeholders are trying to get some prizes for this event, so highly recommend that one as well. And then for the last two, we have Climate Science, who'll be doing a Climate 101 workshop. And then April 16th, which is the Friday, is our last event, and we'll be doing a film screening. So more details to come on which film is actually being screened. We're hoping to have that solidified by Wednesday night or Thursday. So more to come. And if you go to the next slide, that is the link to sign up to join us on spring break. So if you're interested in attending any of those events, or you're just interested in attending one of them, please use this link and we'll be able to send you information on how to join them on the day of. So it's just in the chat if you want to click through that. Yep. So I'm going to pass it off to Katie, who's going to do troubleshooting your project.
Awesome. Thanks, Safreen. Yeah, I'm just going to put the link into the chat. You can see it there. It'll also be on our website and it'll be emailed to you. So there'll be lots of ways for you to get that link, sign up, and check out the events, and more information will come over social media for you. So our webinar today is all about troubleshooting your project. It's all about talking about some common problems, things that we've been hearing from you. You might have been reaching out to Efrain and I with these that lots of people were sort of had concerns or were struggling with, so we'll cover some of those. And we'll also hear from Uzair, who will be joining us soon to talk a little bit about his project from last year, as well as focusing on specifically the problems that he overcame while he worked on his project. Cool, but first let's go over some common problems. So one big one is, wow, I don't know if I have enough time to complete my project or calculate or do anything. If this is what you're thinking of, then don't worry, because you do have enough time, even though the project submission is in 2 weeks. We are not asking for a project that requires lots and lots of work. There's lots of tools for you, like that calculation, like that Excel sheet, which we'll go over a little bit more about how to use it today. There's the toolkit. There's lots of stuff on your website. So, and just referring back to that sheet, we asked that you do a little bit of a baseline calculation. So I have some questions about how long is that baseline? What does that sort of entail? Well, that can be sort of as long or as short as you like it. We recommend 7 days because that's a good way for you to see your own habits and how it's working. And then you can move into your project. So if you're kind of haven't really started anything yet, you are still in a really good place. You can do all your baseline calculations this week, and then next week during spring break, or even the next 2 weeks, you can implement your action, and then you can submit your final report, kind of put that all together, I guess, within the 1 week or 2 weeks. And how that you sort of move all that stuff around is based on your own schedule, but you do have enough time, and definitely we're here to help you if you need it. Like I said, there's lots of webinars that you can see. We went through the schedule before. If you didn't get a chance to be with us last week or any of the other ones, then do check them out. They're on FeedLoop if you're coming in from FeedLoop, if you're coming in from a different way. then you can definitely check out those things. Are also on our website. So do check out all the materials you can. If you ever have a question, use the data calculation sheet if you have questions. That's a big sort of common question that we get. How do I calculate or measure my GHG? We hear you. We know that it's a little bit challenging, but that's why we would have that calculation template. Again, we'll kind of review that in a second. And then, of course, if you have any other questions, you can always email me, Afreen, and we'll go through them one on one with you. Even if you just want to bounce off an idea, I've gotten lots of common questions about, oh, my project idea is shifted, or is this okay if I do this? Then you can definitely just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, letting you know whether or not you're on track or offering any guidance if you need it. So those are some of the common sort of problem solutions that we have for you here. And again, remember that you have that toolkit. That toolkit is accessible to you. If you don't know where it is or you lost that link that we sent out a while ago, then do reach out to us and we can send it to you again. There's lots of great stuff there to help you do the project. Cool. So now I'm going to pass it on back to Afreen just briefly. She's going to walk us through the calculation sheet. We've gotten some questions since we sent that out about how to put that sheet together. And then I'll move on and we'll talk a little bit more about other areas of the project where there might be questions or problems, and we'll tell you how to walk through them. Cool?
For sure. Thanks, Katie. So for those of you who haven't attended our past webinars, your baseline your baseline emissions are before you implement your project. So when Katie was saying to do it for 7 days, that's you tracking what your greenhouse gas emissions are before you've actually implemented your project. So a good example is if someone is doing meatless Mondays for 7 days prior before their meatless Monday, they're just tracking to see how often are they eating meat, at what weight are they eating it, and how frequently they're eating it. So that's all they're tracking for that. And then your program emissions is after you have implemented your project. So if you take, for example, the Meatless Mondays again, that is tracking, what are you using to replace the meats? And again, you're tracking it for 7 days as well. For both of these, we do recommend just having the same amount of time passed for each of them, just because it gives a better understanding of the impacts that happen when you do make that change. It'll just be clearer to you on like how amazing it can be just doing through a small change. But I lost my train of thought. But basically, if you ever have any questions about, measuring your baseline versus your program, like feel free to email us at any point because we are here to help you. And I'm pretty sure Katie is just bringing up the spreadsheet that we've sent out to you by email. So if you haven't received it, please check your spam and junk folder because sometimes when there's an attachment, it'll automatically go there. So every single person who did a project submission should have received an email that A, confirms that they're good to go, and B, has that spreadsheet for you to calculate it automatically. Amazing. So if you go to the transportation tab, so this is just all you need to fill out. It is really straightforward, and we try to make it as easy as possible and as friendly and as possible as well. So for the baseline emissions, again, we're recommending 7 days for all projects. If you're running out of time and 7 days is too much, that's okay. Like you can also do 2 or 3 days, 1 day, like however many you want. It's just 7 days is our recommendation. And then for the activity, that's your total driving distance. So yeah, if you just input 7 days. So when you're seeing how far you drive to school, this is really easy. You just have to put it in Google Maps, and from your house to the school and then back, it'll show you the total amount of kilometers, and you just need to input it into that first column right there. So say your driving distance is like 15 kilometers. which Katie will write quickly. Yeah. And then if you go down to the energy intensity, this is applicable to whatever car that you're using. So you need to be wary of the specific brand of your car because depending on the brand, your energy intensity is going to be different. So make sure you ask your parents what model they have. So let's take, for example, it's a luxury sedan, which is 12.2. So you would put that energy intensity in the driving tab right there. Yeah. And then if you scroll down, because you don't have a bus and you don't have active transport yet, you're just measuring your actual car, you're looking now at your emission factor. So with a luxury sedan, yep, just as Katie is highlighting, those are the emission coefficients that relate to each one. So with a luxury sedan, we're just going to hypothetically say that it's a gasoline vehicle. So it's 2,317, and you'll put that again into the first tab for the driving. So hmm, that's interesting. So what should have happened is that for the baseline emissions, a number would have populated. I'm wondering if there's potentially an error that's occurring right now. Hmm. Well, anyways, we will make the adjustment in the formula, but what should have occurred is that a total would have popped up. And then for the program emissions, it's the same thing. So if you decided to ride your bicycle instead, you would just write those coefficients under the walking slash biking distance tabs. Okay, so Katie's just quickly putting it in to see if it'll populate right now. No, it doesn't need the zeros. That's weird. So it did work with the one, passenger one, but you're not on a bus. Okay, well, same goes for the other side. If you're deciding to bike or bus, you'll put whatever coefficient is relevant to it. So again, if you have any questions about this spreadsheet, feel free to email us and we can, either schedule a quick phone call about it or we can just walk you through it by email as well. So that's it for the spreadsheet itself. It's the same for the home electricity, food, and waste. The only thing I will note about the home electricity is dependent on each appliance. So if you're measuring your greenhouse gas emissions and you decide to say, okay, your dishwasher is what you want to calculate, um, the dishwasher has to be applied on both your baseline emissions and your program emissions. If you decide to do multiple appliances, that's amazing, but you need to order it the same fashion. So appliance one is dishwasher, appliance two is light bulb, and everything would be associated to those specific ones. Amazing, yeah. So then when I say everything is associated, the energy intensity, you need to look it up to make sure that they are the same for each one.
I'll say here too, especially if you're looking at home energy. Last week we talked a little bit about assumptions and things you might have to estimate as part of your project. These numbers are estimates. We've pulled them from a paper that is sourced in the toolkit that is also pulled from Mike and Denise's presentation, How to Track, Measure, Report Your Impact. So yeah, these numbers are already estimated. So you can kind of think about that. You might look into if you're interested in maybe to the type of dishwasher you have, would also might change this number a little bit. Some of this information might be inside your manual. You could probably try Googling it. And looking at light bulbs in particular, some light bulbs are more energy efficient than other ones. So that's why the wattage and the differences there you have to take into account. It's not as straightforward. So you can just look, see how much you can find. And if you're really struggling to find it, you can email a free and and then we can we can work together to find a number. Or you can just put the best sources that you find together and then make an estimate. And then in the report, you can say, I looked at so and so, I looked here, I looked at the Canadian reference for appliances. I don't think that exists, but if it does, you can look at it there. And then you can put a reasonable estimate into the sheet here. Just talk about why you make that estimate. It's hard to find very exact numbers. Lots of different things have different factors that come into play in terms of energy. So just try to get as close as possible. And then if you talk about why you picked that number, then that's totally fine within the context of our report as well. Food as well, you have to look at the type of item, so you can put that together. I've already had some questions too about what does it mean if I have, let's say, a lasagna. Like a lasagna has multiple different ingredients in it, it's going to be a little bit hard to pull out. But if you're looking specifically at meat, or if you're looking at certain like food item, then you can kind of pull those items together to give you maybe a rough estimate. It's not going to be exact, but you can kind of see where it is based on your own judgment. If you so if you like, so during your baseline calculations, you put in I don't know, let's say I want to say a pound of lamb or something like that, but that's like crazy amount. But let's say you did that into your lasagna, but you only have one piece of that. So it's not going to be exactly this number here because it's per kilogram of food. So you're going to have to be doing some reworking, thinking about how you want to put this in. Not a lot. And if you do have questions about the food one, you definitely reach out to us. We can help you out. You can use this calculation sheet. Feel free to have maybe a separate sheet for yourself where you put in some of those original numbers, maybe the weights. Weight is very important too when you're doing the food because you're going to have to be knowing how kilograms or how many grams, for example, and then convert it afterwards. So make yourself a sheet, a blank one, and then so that way you're not affecting or messing up this sheet too much because again, all of these calculations are here in for you. They're predetermined. I have faith that you won't mess anything up. But if you happen to and you're like, oh no, my calculations are gone, I have no idea what I'm doing, just reach out to Afreen and I. We can give you a blank sheet so that way you can start off and you can kind of build this sheet in. For the final report, you'll see here the transportation numbers. Everything is pulled to this last total sheet. So if you're doing a mix of different types of projects, say you're looking at transportation and food, and you're also looking at waste, you're looking at lots of different types of stuff, all of those numbers from each of these different sheets will feed into your total, and you'll see your total impact here at the end. So these numbers are the ones that you would put into your final report. These are the numbers that we're most interested in to see how much, and this is carbon dioxide equivalent, you would make in total per day, per week, per month. So this is kind of what we're trying to look at here. So as you put through your numbers, you'll see those things fill in. And if you don't, then do let us know. We can help you figure out the sheet here. But yeah, I think that's all you really need to know about this sheet. And then if you're having any issues with it, do refer back to the track, measure, record. We're also going to have a webinar with Mike and Denise where you can come back and you can ask questions about the measurements. That calculation here is right at the top as well. It's at the top of every single sheet here. They have a different one depending on what it is. So do look at that. You can pull this calculation, just do it yourself. You don't need to use the sheet. The sheet is here as a tool for you, but it's not the be all end all. It's just something to help you get the numbers. What we really want is those total numbers.
Yeah, and I will add on to say if you do choose to not use the template that we've provided, that's totally okay. Just use the equations at the top, and in the toolkit itself, like we have done a very detailed step-by-step on how to pull those numbers and use the equation itself and do the conversions for the final amount. And we will reiterate, because it was a concern for some students, that if the calculation is wrong or if you mess up in your project somehow, that you were concerned that you wouldn't get your volunteer hours. But we do want to reassure you that no matter what, as long as you showed an effort to actually complete the project and made an effort to do the calculations to the best of your ability, you 100% will still get the 20 volunteer hours no matter what.
Yeah, part of it is also a learning project sometimes, and you'll find this is too if you're into science or you're doing science reports, sometimes the things you start out doing, and this is true of your project idea, isn't necessarily where you end up, and sometimes the things you're looking for you don't find. So as long to you do your best if you reach out to us and you're trying to find a calculation, a number here that you can put in. Um, First of all, I know that you will definitely be, if you're reaching out, if you're using the tools, and if you're asking questions, then you will be able to fill out the sheet, so this is no problem. But if you do end up sort of a little bit off, or maybe you didn't do it correctly, it's, yeah, exactly like Afreen said, it's not the end of the world. What we're most interested in is that you learned something, that you pulled something from the program, and then maybe if you have if you're at school again next year, we're doing this project again, that you can try it again, and this time with all your learnings, you can even do an even better job. Cool. So let me transition back to our presentation. Maybe in the meantime, I will say, just so you guys know, this might be our first one too. We are now in Zoom meeting, so we're no longer in Zoom webinar. So your microphones are available to you. You can also turn on your camera. We ask that you turn your camera and keep your microphone off while we're talking, just so that me and Afreen's voices come through clear and everybody can see everything that we're sharing. Yeah, if you're joining us through Feedloop, then you'll come into the Zoom the exactly same way as it was a webinar. This time you won't see Q&A, so there's no Q&A function here anymore for us, but there is the chat. So if you do have any questions, or as we're talking through some of these calculations, then do feel free to use that chat function for yourself. It should just be at the bottom too, so you can use that there for you. We'll also have a Q&A at the end, so if you want to just save your questions and then ask them then, feel free to. But if you also have any comments, questions, or concerns you want to put into the chat so we can talk about them with you right now, then do feel free to use that function for you. Cool. And I am just going to share screen again. So bear with me.
It's okay, Katie.
Like, I should be used to Zoom by now, but
I think you are. It's just there's so many different, it doesn't allow like you to just switch between them really easily. You have to like get rid of it, then do the next one. Amazing.
Okay, so I'm just going to play start.
I would just like to note on as Katie brings it back up again for the baseline versus the program emissions. If you're unsure on what the actual baseline emissions are for your project, that chart that is on that slide is really helpful in just understanding how to measure, yeah, the one before. The calculation sheet.
Cool. Can you see what I can see?
I can see next slide in 30 seconds.
Oh, you see presenter slides?
Yeah.
Can you see my slides now?
I see FAQ.
Yay! Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'll put up presenter slides, but I just need to work it through. So yeah, so here I'm just gonna take a moment to talk about, I mentioned them a little bit before, but some of the questions I've been getting. Yeah, I mentioned them before, but I'll just say them again now. One big question I've gotten has been, what happens if my project idea shifts? What happens if I submitted a project idea as a group and now I'm doing my project individually? For both those questions, I would say don't stress and don't worry about it. If you happen to submit your project idea or project proposal as a group, but you choose to do it now individually, I still have each individual name, hence why we asked that each person submitted their form and just made reference to each other. We also grouped you, so we gave you your group number. So on our side, we've gone through every single application, we've grouped them, but with the final submission, we'll just cross-reference. So if you started off as a project and then it didn't work out, so you did an individual, just make sure that each individual submits a project. But if you decide that you still want to do in a group, then the submission is just for one group member. If the idea shifts, then that's no problem whatsoever either. So you just make reference to your final report. There'll be a little section where you can talk about your discussion, talk about why maybe your idea shift, maybe there was something that happened or something you learned that caused you to shift your idea. Then you can talk about that in your final report. So anytime that you're any of these decisions making, you're making these decisions, you're coming across any problems, you're realizing that maybe the idea that you chose at the beginning isn't maybe necessarily the one you want to do now, just make note, make a reference, because all that stuff will come up at the final project. Like I said, we've been getting how to measure and track my GHG. We just went through the calculation sheet, and if you do have any other questions, you can. My solution to that would be keep track of every time that you have these questions. Either email them to Afreen or I. Take a look to see if there's something that an answer in the toolkit that can already help you. There's a sample calculation there, so you could look at that. And then as well with the sheet, you can also see what it is that you need to research. So we have a bunch of, for the home energy appliances there for you. For the food items, we have those items there. But if there's something that's there that or that isn't there that you need, then that's when you'd have to go and find resources. You can also email Afreen and I, and we can give you those resources so you can sift through them yourself, or we can also help you find those answers. So there's a lot of information for you. If you're ever coming across a question, jot it down and just email Afreen and I, and we can help. Cool. So at this point, I'm going to invite Uzair, who is one of our he was one of our Generation Green stakeholders last year. He is currently one of our youth members, also our youth board member from Halton Environmental Network. So he is doing his business degree at U of T, and he's going to talk a little bit more about his project and focusing in on some of the things that might have gone wrong and what he did to overcome them to maybe inspire you to keep going with your project. Welcome, Uzair.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Cool.
Katie, you're on mute.
Sorry. I put myself on mute in preparation for Uzair to take it off. But Uzair, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of your project? And then if you can think back to when you did your project, can you give us one thing that maybe didn't go exactly the way that you planned it and what you did to overcome that hurdle?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I would begin by congratulating you guys for making it to the Gen Green 2021, because this whole conference, it's really close to my heart and many other previous year youth stakeholders, because we know that how impactful this conference can be. We are all members of the youth of Halton, but we have unlimited potential to create a change and ultimately reduce our carbon footprint. So in order to what I did with my group member Rory, so we did it as a group. So we were focused in business, as you as it was mentioned that I'm doing a business degree. So we were in grade 12 and we were focused on what kind of business aspect of environment can we capture through our project. So what we did that we randomly went to different small businesses in Oakville. We didn't approach large businesses because we didn't have any kind of credibility. We were just grade 12 students who were randomly going and knocking at the doors and saying, hey, do you want to consult and have a project where we can help you reduce your carbon footprint? So we went to 20, 25 businesses, but the biggest obstacle was that since we don't have any credibility, only 2 of them agreed that they want to, okay, let us in, talk to them about how they can reduce their carbon emissions. So one of the restaurants was a restaurant. It was quite a fancy restaurant on the Lakeshore Road, and it wasn't. We weren't even expecting them to even let us in, look at their kitchen, look at what are their practices, how green they are right now, and how we can improve their practices, such as start carpooling, introduce LED lights and stuff. So in our project precisely, we were consulting. So we were telling them, so okay, you are doing this, but what can you do to improve? So we came up with a plan: energy, transportation, outreach, and as they were restaurants, so we were also focusing on the menu. So in terms of menu, we were telling them, try to promote vegan dishes, have a vegan day, which they ultimately did. And in terms of transportation, we told them that the employees can come to the restaurant in a carpooling manner. Instead of like coming in their own cars, they can like carpool. And in terms of like energy and in waste management, so they changed, even like by us, like just two kids came in and they changed their contract with their waste management company. It even cost them $2,000. So the main thing is that you have to be like concise. You have to tell them like what you're here for, and you have to tell them about the importance of environment as well. You cannot just go in and say, okay, we're just high school kids and we're doing a project. Rather be passionate, tell them why you're doing it and how it would be beneficial to you. Like there would be like many of you who would be like reducing your own carbon footprint, but if you're like willing to go out, reach out to other people, even your neighbors or even your friends, you have to tell them about what how it could be beneficial. Like just don't tell them that environment crisis is a big issue, it's going to impact the world in the future, but try to create a sense that this is an issue that we are facing right now, and what can we do to reduce it, and how that reduction in carbon in the air would like help our own lives, how we can make our life better. So like I think that's okay, or should I like continue and tell you more about it?
I think that's good. And
Yeah.
definitely, I'll say too, as you know, we said it before, last year was different because um, COVID wasn't really a thing in 2019 as much as it is now. So, of course, when we do, lots of our projects are going to be different. We're not going to be going business by business, but it is true. I appreciate you, Sarah, you mentioning that sometimes what you can do is you can still reach out. And part of what we'll talk about here is how to share your ideas afterwards because you've done all this good work. Maybe you're just doing it internally. Another part of the project could be maybe you want to reach out, or what happens after you've done the project? What do you want to do with what you've done or learned here? Those are great questions to have, even if it's just it'll be a little section in your final report. So thanks, Uzair, for throwing to that because I'm going to talk a little bit about the final report submissions. But this is just a step one in your journey, and step two could be how could you spread the word. And you can learn more about that too in our spring break activities. We have some great webinars with the Climate Reality Project talking about how to lobby to your government, how to write a letter campaign, as well as how to get involved. So there's lots of ways for you to learn what this impacts, what you're doing now, how it fits into the rest of the world as well. So thank you, Azir. That was really great.
I'll just add one thing that don't take this as a project or an assignment that someone is making you do it. Try to like have your own like issue. Try to like personalize it and show that you want to do it and have fun doing it. Like don't worry about the report or what kind of requirements you need to fulfill in order to be eligible for like the completion part. Just have fun, just do whatever you can, don't be worried about it, and just take it easy. There's no need to be like worried about the red tape, the requirements, or anything.
Awesome. Thank you, Zara, so much. I'll have you, Sarah, stick around maybe if you can till the end. If there's any questions, hopefully when you can answer some of them, we'll see if anybody comes out. They do have access to the chat, so if you do have a question for you, Sarah, then definitely feel free to use the chat. He'll stick around just to see if there's any questions as well. But I'll move on with the presentation now. Thank you so much. Yeah, so what we're going to talk about now is a little bit more about the project steps. This is just as you think through your project. You know that we've done, You know that we've done the planning stage. You've submitted your project proposal, which is amazing. You are currently executing and calculating your project. So these are the steps that you're in right now. You're thinking about, you're coming across some problems. You're thinking how you can make creatively move past them. Maybe your problem is that you cannot find your GHG emission for one of your appliances. That's totally okay. You can always make notes, take stock of what you're doing, how it's going. These things aren't necessarily easy. Of course, there's going to be things that are going to be maybe a little frustrating or maybe hard to find, or there might be moments when you're like, oh, this is kind of like much more difficult. That's why this project is so important, just like you, Sarah, said, because a lot of these things are very difficult and not everybody will take the time to do it. So yeah, definitely take stock and feel good that you're going through the process. And of course, the final report is due on April 23rd. I've actually extended the date to give you guys a couple more times. So the final deadline, which I'll update everywhere as well, will be on the 25th. So you guys have the weekend in order to put your final report in. And I'll just take a second now to show you what it looks like. I haven't shared this widely yet, but I will put it up on the website and I'll share it with you the second that after this webinar finishes, so that way you can see it. If you're ready, you can start submitting your project. You can do it anytime. You can also go in and edit your answers. So that's all open and available to you starting probably after this webinar here. I'll start to get it up maybe tomorrow. If you're looking for it, it'll be definitely widely available then. Yeah, so let me just transition again from my PowerPoint presentation into my desktop. Give me 1 second. As I do that, like I said, like this form is not available yet widely, but I will make it available to you. It'll be a form that the answers will be emailed to you. You can go in as many times as you want. You can change your answers up until the due date. Here we go. Cool, so this is your final report submission. You'll also notice in the schedule that there'll be another moment where we'll go through all the different areas. Of course, you'll start out by putting in your email address. So I'm just going to put in a fake email address just to show you the form. And if you have any questions throughout the process as you're putting in this form, then we're here for you. Again, we'll go through this a little bit more in detail in a separate webinar as well. So here you can put the title of your project. If you're doing it individually or partner with a group, put the number of people that you're working with. If you're doing it by yourself, just put 1. You can put your names down here. Oh, this is emails. So email first. Please list all the emails of your group members, just like with a comma would be perfect. Like I said before, while we asked you to put in your individual project proposals, your final report will be one report. So it'll be one form that you fill out with all of your group members. Just like that. Put your schools here, say your grade, and then go to next. Perfect. So this is what the final report will look like. As you can see, it's all in the Google form here. My suggestion for you, once you get access to this as you're going through your project, especially as you're thinking, what do I actually need to be doing? You can take a look at the questions here, make sure to kind of work in a Google Doc. Describe the who, what, where, when, how of your project. That's just a little bit like your project proposal. You can make it just has to be 150 words, not too long at all. Describe your methodology. This is where you include your assumptions, if you estimated anything, why you came up with those assumption estimations. If you're just using the calculation form, you can talk a little bit about how you pulled it from there. Again, 250 words, not very long, but you'll have enough space to put it in here. If you want to know more about the methodology, then definitely go back and check out that other webinar where we talked a little bit more specifically about this in the planning and implementing your project. This is where you can put in your calculation form. You can use ours or your own. That total number, we want to see it. You can just put it right here. Describe your results. Here is where you can talk about how you reduced your GHG emission. What did you achieve? How did your method go? Did you come across any problems? You can talk about that all here in your results of your project, as well as your discussion. So the big difference between results and discussion is the results you want to talk about, the numbers you came up with, maybe a little bit more about how, well, your method's talking about how you did it. The results is like, how did it go? And then discussing your project, you talk a little bit more about in more detail about those challenges, what you learned, why you picked the project. You're kind of going a little bit more in depth. I'm just realizing now, and this is good that I haven't shared this form with you yet, so I will share with you right here. Instead of describe your results of your project, this is where you'll put that question we talked about, climate justice. So remember in the toolkit, which I believe I have up in one of my tabs, I can't see it, so I won't talk about it anymore. We talked a little bit about talking about how this topic relates to the climate justice globally. So this is where you'll talk about that. Again, we're not asking for super long, it'll be 300 to 400 words. And now we kind of want to know, is your project ongoing, or is this kind of the end of your project? Is there a next step? Is there something you want to do with it? We have a time limit, but your project doesn't necessarily have to. If this is something that you want to kind of keep doing, you can talk a little bit about it here. If it's not, you can just say, nope, this is good. This is my step. I'm excited for next year. You can add whatever you want in there. And then you have an opportunity to add some supplementary material if you want to. You do not have to, but if you want to do pictures or social media posts or PowerPoint presentation or whatever, because that helps you because you're a visual person, then you have the option to put that in there for yourself. So this is just generally the report. Again, I will share this with you soon. It'll be complete, and then you can start filling in all those sections. My suggestion, of course, is to maybe take all these titles, put them into a Google Doc, and that way you can fill it out, and then you can copy and paste the final answer. Especially if you're working as a group. Remember, you only have to fill in one of these forms, so definitely work together, get the words down, make sure it explains what you've been doing, how you're doing it, how it happened, what you found out, what your results were, and just reflect a little bit on the process. Then you put that all this stuff in here, and yeah, and then you're good to go. And then as I transition back to my presentation, if there's any questions in the chat, I don't know if there is, Afreen.
So there's no questions yet, but I am putting in the question about the social justice component just so that you guys can see it. So the question that should have been within the Google form is, reflect on the project that you have completed with a social justice lens. How does your project connect to a current climate justice issue, and what are the associated impacts? So we do provide an example within our toolkit, which I highly suggest you just read over. It doesn't have to be too long, but please just dedicate some time to do some research. It's not supposed to feel like it's homework. We really just want to encourage you to do some, deep diving into the issues that are impacting the world, just to broaden your perspective of, not just Canada wide, but also on a global scale of what's going on and how your project can apply to that. So if you take, for example, you're reducing the amount of water usage in your home, a really good social justice lens to apply on that is the Indigenous people within Canada and how they don't have readily accessible water that is, not only safe, but easily able to access it. So often practices that they have is to boil their water, and they have advisories that are within their reserves. So that's the type of format and answer that we're looking for. We just want to see that, you're understanding that while you're doing this action within your home, there are other social justice issues that are impacting on a global scale that is applicable to what you're doing. So if you're ever having trouble, trying to find that connection towards the social justice, again, feel free to email us, because it's definitely a passion for all the youth stakeholders who had originally proposed this idea about creating a social justice theme around Generation Green, but it's also a passion for both Katie and I, and we would love to speak with you one-on-one if you ever want to have a discussion about it.
I'll also say too, just for the word count, again, they're not very, very long. They're in total, it should be about 3 pages, which isn't that long. You've already done a little bit of it already by submitting your project proposal, by working on your calculations, thinking through your method, taking notes as you do the process. It should be very easy for you to transition them. Yeah, like I said, the most reflective part is that area on the social justice. Again, you don't have to do a lot of research there, but do take your time to think about that question. I'm really interested to see you think through the reasons why, how this project connects to the global world. Again, it'd be very fun to take that time. It's not usually we don't take the time to reflect on our own lives, so I do encourage you to really take some time to really think through that. And I said time so many times, so I'm not going to say it anymore. But yeah, again, here's the link. I'm going to update the form a little bit, so I will make it widely available. I will email it out. I will make it on the website. Again, I'm wondering if maybe the chat function's not working well if you're coming through Feedloop. So if you do have any questions or comments about any of the things that we talked about in this presentation, do feel free to email Afreen and I. We can review some of the materials. We'll probably send out like a nice email there just in case that's the reason why maybe there's nothing in the chat, but don't feel stressed if you don't have anything to say in the chat now, then that's no problem. If the things come to you later, you wake up in the morning and you're like, ooh, like I have questions about the calculations, you can definitely email Afreen and I. Maybe Afreen, we can pop our emails in the chat, but they're also up on the website. Again, it says here that the due date is April 23rd. We extended it to be covered the weekend. Afreen and I are also available for one-on-one appointments too. So if you do want us to go through the final submission form with you, maybe a little one-on-one, talk through a little bit more personally to your project, then we'll make some times available for you to get in touch. So that way you can, you can have that time. So we're here for you. And I encourage you to enjoy spring break, to enjoy those fun activities, and to come back in that week, that submission week. We'll talk a little bit more about it again in the webinar series and about calculations. So there's lots of support for you as well. And of course, don't leave your submission to the last minute. As you can see, there is a couple different parts of the submission process. And you don't want to miss out on any of the things that come after because the form goes wrong. And of course, you can go in, you can fill out some sections, and you can then return into the form afterwards in order to complete the rest of the sections. So go in, take a look at it when you're able to, and that way you can feel not stressed as you submit your form, and you can do it at your own time. You got lots of time to keep doing this, lots of time to do your project, lots of time to submit, so you're still in a very good place. Awesome. Something I want to talk about too, after you submit the project, we'll talk a little bit about how to communicate your idea to the public, to your friends and family. Something else we'll be having is a wrap-up event where you have the chance to win prizes. You'll get that certificate of completion. You'll get your 20 hours, and then you'll get this. So all the projects are going to be judged by a third-party judging committee that we're putting together that include HDSB staff, trustees, teachers, principals, I think, too. So there'll be I'm hoping to get also maybe a student trustee or something like that, someone of your peers to also be part of that judging panel, as well as members from the Halton Environmental Network. So they'll be taking a look at all of your projects, and there's a chance to win prizes and awards and special recognition. So that's very exciting. And of course, regardless, everyone's invited on May 12th to hear about all the other projects, what everybody's been doing. We have about 180 projects or so, that's including group projects. So there's lots of projects, lots of really interesting things happens, and this is our chance to really talk about all those things here from others. So we're very excited. Mark May 12th in your calendars. It'll come up very quick. April, March flew by, so this will come very fast as well. Awesome. Just to recap on some of our resources, these are always available to you. You can check out our website, Generation Green, -201. Missed it there. Afreen, you can put that into the chat for people. The toolkit, there's the link for it there. There's resources on our website. So you can check out past projects. You can check out, I think, even the wrap-up event. So if you wanted to check out what the wrap-up event looked like from last year, March 2020, you can check it out there too. Of course, you can keep checking Feedloop. Lots of stuff on Feedloop. Check out the conferences and material from the May 10th event. So you can check out everything there. And of course, you can always email me or Afreen if you have any extra questions. All of these webinars are recorded. They're up on Feedloop. They're up on our website. So again, it's mandatory to watch at least 2. We can check because we can see that attendance on Feedloop. So you don't have to watch them live. You can rewatch them recorded. So lots of opportunities for you to get that and complete the project. Cool. A reminder, again, like I said, everything's recorded, so you can watch those events. Do join us on spring break from April 12th to 16th. Lots of exciting stuff. You can check out the schedule on our website. You can find out more. There'll be more things coming on our social media. That final report is there one more time. It was in the tool. Oh, sorry, it's in the chat. It'll be emailed to you. So if you don't have a pen in front of you, or you don't have the ability, or you just don't want to worry about screenshotting it, then I totally understand. You don't have to worry about that. Everything will be shared with you many different times, so you have everything you need, and you can find it very easily. It'll be shared on FeedLoop, the website, so you'll be able to find it. Our next webinar is going to be on April 20th. So it'll be a combination of calculating. I'm focusing on how to calculate as well as reviewing these final submissions. Again, if you do need extra help with the final submission, you can reach out to Afreen and I. We can set up some individual time in order to help you. Mike and Denise are going to be returning with us. They're going to be there on April 20th. Mike and Denise, if you don't know, are the amazing presenters of our Track, Measure, Record webinar. So they'll be there to they're really the masters of all of this. They do this for work. Mike works for the Halton Hills, City of Halton Hill, Town of Halton Hills, and Denise works for the town of Oakville. They work in climate change departments, each and they're separately in their own area. So this is what they live and breathe all the time. So they're really, really comfortable with all of these numbers. So they'll be a great resource for you to talk a little bit more about how to calculate it, and they can talk a little bit about individual cases. So I do encourage you to attend, and then we'll go over a little bit about the final submission. Just like we did now, we'll do it again on the 20th. And then of course the wrap-up event. Here's the spring break. Here's some fun posters created by our new stakeholders. You can see there's that all-day cleanup. There's Sutan. She's from Eco Justice. She's an eco lawyer, so you can learn a little bit more from her. By eco lawyer, I mean environmental lawyer instead of eco lawyer, but it's the same thing. And then, of course, a little bit more about that trivia night. All this stuff is coming to you real soon. It's coming to your email. It's going to come on your social medias. And, of course, here's a link where you can sign up. The link was in the chat. It'll be shared with you again, so do not stress if you can't jot it down or take a screenshot of it now. It'll be coming to your inboxes very soon. And of course, here's my email and Afreen's email, so you can get back to us, and I'll put this slide up, but right now we'll take some questions from the chat. I'm seeing things pop through.
Yeah, so there's a couple, and I'll read them out to you, and Katie will answer. So for the final form, it asks what grade you're in, but what happens if your partner and you are in 2 different grades?
Great question. I will actually go back to the form really quick. You'll notice when I share my form again, that question is a check mark question, not a multiple choice question, which means that you can check multiple different things. So I will go back, I'll show it to you. So yeah, I thought about that question as well. There are a couple projects where there are students in different grades. So what you'll do is you will put in the title of your project, you'll put in the number, again, of people who's in your group. You'll list the emails with a comma in between. You'll list the schools, and then here you can check off as many grades as you want. So you can see it's very simple. We thought through these things as well. We know that there's a couple different grades, or if you're doing it with your sibling and you're in 2 different grades too, then you can just check off there which 2 grades you are. It doesn't matter to us which identifying which student or which email is in which grade. We have your project proposal form, so we know the names and the grades of everybody who's been part of a project or who has submitted an intention to finish the project. So we can cross-reference those ourselves. So yeah, you definitely, there's an opportunity for you to put in all the information you need as a group. Then just identify your names, your emails, and just check off your individual grades and then continue on. In the second part of this form, again, if you're in a group, you only need to fill out 1, so you can work on your answers, copy and paste them directly into the form, and then move on. Great question.
So next question is, if I'm doing a project on an appliance that isn't used every day, like a washing machine, can I record the number of uses instead of the number of days?
That's a good question. I would count it still as days for the simplicity of the calculation, the way that it is. So you'll just find that out as you kind of move through. In science, you have to, they don't really have it based case by case. It's usually just a general equation. The general equation is based on days. So you can talk a little bit about that in your process when you're talking through your results or your discussion, but you can say just count, I guess, if you use a dishwasher, if you're using your laundry machine, or if you're using your hair dryer, you use it, say, only on Monday, but you don't use it the rest of the week. Just count Monday one day instead of the whole week. So just count it every time you use it, and then that way it could feed into the sheet. It has to be the same for your baseline. It has to be a day. Same if you reduce instead of cut out. So if you cut out, you say, I'm not going to use a dishwasher or my washing machine or my hair dryer, then it's 0 days. So you just didn't use it at all. But say I was using my hair dryer every day, so that was like 7 days. And then I decide I'm only going to use it 2 days, then just record those 2 days and the difference. So yeah, be specific on the days, even if you only use it. And then if it's for an appliance, they say seconds. Time yourself. There's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and then you can kind of use that. So it'll have to be in the measurements that are in the calculation sheet, because that's just part of what we need for the calculations. I'll say really quick too, if you're looking at the home appliances and you don't see an appliance that you like there, or you like that you have, you'll notice the units. So it'll have to be in those units. So say you're Googling, you said you can't find your appliance that you're using, you want to Google it, just make sure to really take a look at whether or not it's in joules or something else. So there is different ways that you can measure energy. So just make sure that it fits in the same, it's the same format as what we're asking for in the sheet. So if we're asking for days, put days. If we're asking for seconds, put seconds. If we're asking for joules or distance, then make sure, or kilometers versus whatever. I can't think of other distance right now. Anyway, be very specific, because it does make a difference in your form. Thank you.
Awesome. And then last question, can I make a video to attach to the Google form that explains my project?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the Google form, I think you should be big enough to upload a video. I think definitely you can upload a video if you're interested in doing a video or something else. Then you definitely can submit something more creative. Or if you're trying to, let's say you have a series of images, you'll notice in the form too that there's only one upload. So my suggestion is to kind of put them all together in a Word doc or a PDF, and then just upload the one document. I have to double check. I think it's like 1 gigabyte. So if you're having trouble, say you do a video and you're having trouble uploading it to the form because it's a little bit too big, you can try to compress the video or the PowerPoint or the poster. It should be big enough. You should be able to fit everything in there, but if you can't, just email it separately to Efrain or I. But we'll talk a little bit about those specific things in our final submission Q&A, where we'll talk a little bit about those specifically. But if you're ever having trouble uploading your files because they're too big, just email it separately to Efrain and I. Do a video if that interests you. It'd be lovely to see some creative stuff, especially if that's something that interests you. I think it's a great communication tool.
Awesome. Those are all the questions.
Yay! And we're a little bit over time, but thank you guys all for staying with us. This recording will be up on FeedLoop. It'll be up on the website, so you can watch it back if you'd like, and you can share it around with your friends if they haven't seen it. Again, remember that you can see all of our past webinars if you haven't got a chance to see them on the same places, so you can check them all out. Scroll through and just look at the parts that you'd like to look at as well. You can watch it on your own pace, which is great. So again, thank you for being here. We'll see you again on April 20th. And next week, enjoy your spring break, enjoy the nice weather, and do take a chance to sign up for those spring break activities and join us for lots of great fun next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.